Hello. Hello and welcome to Casual Krakoa on a Thursday. Going up on a Thursday of all days. I'm Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of comicbookherald.com. You are listening to the Comic Book Herald YouTube channel and podcast. Thank you so much for joining today, those of you who are live, and even those of you who are joining later. Thank you for checking things out here. Again, I'm Dave, the founder of comicbookherald.com. Such an amazing website. We have all sorts of reading order guides, excellent critical analysis, and really anything you could want comics related. Go on over to cbh.com and check things out. But thanks to those of you who are joining live, let me know how things are sounding, how we are looking here in the comments on the live stream. And if we have any issues, definitely let me know. Otherwise, I do want to hear your questions today as we talk about what has been actually a pretty big day in the world of comics. I pushed the Casual Krakoa. Normally, I do these on every Wednesday. Wednesdays are new comic book day for Marvel, so they release their new X-Men comics every Wednesday, and I'll do some Kraken Krakoas, and then I will do a Casual Krakoa on that Wednesday at the end of the day, circa 5:15 Central Standard Time. But this week, I wanted to do it on Thursday, because Marvel has been teasing a big Marvel Unlimited drop, okay? They teased a new Jonathan Hickman and Declan Shalvey comic coming exclusively via Marvel Unlimited, and I wanted to wait till today so we could talk about the actual content of that rather than spending yesterday doing theories, right? Doing theories about what it could be, and boy, am I glad I did that, because all of my theories would have been way too involved for what we actually got. I mean, my big hope, my sincerest hope for this Hickman and Shalvey comic, which has been released now and is called X-Men Unlimited, okay, that is the series name. It is on Marvel Unlimited right now. If you didn't know, if you don't have a subscription, that's where you can find it. We'll talk a little bit about, is it worth it to subscribe to Marvel Unlimited for these comics and for other stuff. But my main theory that I hoped this comic was going to be is I really was hoping it was a Moira prelude series setting up Inferno. We know Inferno is the big X-Men event coming at the end of September. Everyone is all systems go for what is hopefully a really, really exciting X-Men event. You know, it is the sequel, essentially, to House and Powers. And I was hoping they would utilize this Hickman and Shalvey announcement to say, hey, here's some Moira Lifeline stuff, just simple, like setting the stage, kind of even just reminders about, like, oh yeah, she worked on a cure in this lifeline, and oh yeah, she was with Apocalypse in this lifeline, and just all this really simple stuff. It didn't need to be the Moira series we had hoped and prayed for, right? But something along those lines I thought would have been something X-fans really wanted, and also would have set the stage for this upcoming print event. But no, that is not at all what we got. Instead, it is X-Men Unlimited, and what X-Men Unlimited is it's a tiny little Wolverine comic. It's a very simple Wolverine comic. It is part of a big launch today via Marvel Unlimited. So Marvel Unlimited, for those of you who are unaware, is Marvel Comics' digital streaming service. You can subscribe to Marvel Unlimited for $9.99 a month. If you subscribe annually, I think it's closer to like $6 a month. It's $69 for the year. And for that, you get access to this app, which has an enormous catalog of Marvel Comics from 1961, from the Stan and Jack days, from Fantastic Four #1, and actually they even have older stuff than that, on through today, up to about 3 months before where we are present, okay? They keep a little bit of a gap there between literally dropping the newest comics in Marvel Unlimited. They wait 3 months until they drop them into the system, but it's like 30,000 comics. It's the absolute best possible way to legally get access to all the Marvel comics you could ever read, right? So it's well worth it purely on a value and a per comic basis. And we'll sort of dig into the specifics of what's there. But throughout the years, Marvel Unlimited has played with the prospect, with the idea of dropping original, unique content directly in the Marvel Unlimited app, okay? They have done Marvel Digital Infinite comics before. They have done, as early as like the system, as the app was launched, which was like 2007, 2008, they had a Secret Invasion tie-in comic, which is not super relevant, and that's kind of the point. But they have done this before. They have tried this. It has actually been a while. It's actually been a minute since they've released specific, Marvel Unlimited unique series that had some sort of weight, definitely that had any creative weight behind them. And that's what the launch today is. So today there was an app update, okay? And the dev team, basically they said they redesigned the app from basically the ground up. And along with that, redesign of the app, they have Marvel Unlimited Infinity Comics. And there's a whole, essentially a line of Infinity Comics that were released today with some serious creative heft behind them. Okay, so in addition to Hickman and Declan Shalvey, two big names releasing an X-Men comic, you have Mark Russell writing a Black Widow Hawkeye comic, which was pretty enjoyable. You have Melissa Wong writing a Shang-Chi series, which is on there. What else? We had Kelly Thompson and Go to Hero doing a Jeff the Landshark comic. Scotty Young doing Giant Size X-Men. Jay Edidin writing a Captain America series, which is probably my favorite of the bunch, actually. And what all these comics are is they are vertical scrollers. Okay, so if you've read WebToon before, or if you're hearing about WebToon now, what it means basically is it's designed for your phone. It's designed for scrolling. There's no page turn. Okay, there's no page turn. You just scroll on up. The whole comic is there, one giant vertical scroller, and you just scroll your way through. And it's built for phones. It's built for mobile reading. It's built for a fairly fast, light experience. And you know, we've seen this week, it's been interesting, DC Comics, a little while back, they announced that they were going to release some Batman comics on WebToon. Okay, and WebToon is the biggest player in the mobile vertical scrollers space. It's come up a lot recently in comics discourse, but like WebToon is massive, absolutely massive. Like the amount of people that read comics almost entirely on WebToon is, if you're not familiar with it, it is mind-boggling. You know, we are talking hundreds of thousands of readers who read exclusively through WebToon. And what DC did is they said, well, if we can't beat them, let's join them. We're going to throw some Batman books on here. And those came out on Tuesday. And it's Wayne Family Adventures. And the thing that DC did that I think was surprising and kind of delightfully surprising was they actually released Batman comics that fit the tone and the themes and the vibe of WebToon, which is to say charming and fun and funny and goofy. It's not your serious print DC Comics Batman. It is goofy, all of the Bat family living together under one roof, trying to get Alfred's last cookie. You know, it's more Full House than it is Batman. But it's the Bat family, and it's these characters and their personalities to a degree, and it fits WebToon absolutely perfectly. And what Marvel Unlimited has done this week is they're saying the opposite. They're saying, no, we'll build our own better boat with our own properties. We're going to make people pay for it, because you have to subscribe to Marvel Unlimited to get access to these Infinity Comics. And I like, honestly, I like the audacity. I like the strategy for Marvel. I don't know that it's smarter. I mean, the Batman stuff on WebToon is going to reach a gazillion more eyeballs. It also seems to have generated just better hype, I think, because of the ways it leans into sort of the stylistic ticks of WebToon, you know, whereas these Marvel Infinity Comics, they read like Marvel Comics, essentially. You know, it's not like it's vertical scroller means something tonally for Marvel. They read like Marvel Comics, just vertically you're scrolling up. But I do like that Marvel's actually like, we're going to try to do this better on our own terms in Marvel Unlimited. I like the prospect of exclusive Infinity Comics in Marvel Unlimited. Like I'm actually pretty invested now. I'm definitely going to want to check out, I think on a weekly basis, like what is the new, you know, Hickman release. You know, is the Captain America series written by Edidin? Is that going to have 1 issue drop a week, 2 issue drop a week, right? Whatever the cadence is going to be. You know, the Hickman story ends on a cliffhanger, right? So the Hickman Wolverine story, that ends on a cliffhanger. So clearly there's more to come. They released the first 2 issues today. And let's talk the specific issue before we talk any more about the platform, okay? The surprise Jonathan Hickman and Declan Shalvey X-Men comic. Again, it's a Wolverine-focused X-Men Unlimited story. It is very, very average. like it is intensely average. It is totally fine. I had a fine time reading it. It is not super additive to anything in X-Men continuity, right? Like, and that's not surprising. Definitely the intent of this Infinity line is generally out of continuity stuff. You know, like it's not actually out of continuity because it's set during the Krakoa era, right? And the issue kicks off, and I won't spoil anything. I don't even know that I could. But it kicks off with like a peak, with a sword story on the peak, okay? So it's very Krakoa era specific, but it's also like I don't think there's going to be a revelation in this comic that then spills into the pages of Ben Percy's Wolverine or Inferno or anything, that quote unquote matters in X-Men comics that we're reading currently. I think it's meant to be easy access. It's meant to be like a starting place for new readers. I think that's actually what 98% of this Marvel Unlimited revamp is geared towards, is basically the question of where do I start? At the expense of other things, too, frankly. At the expense of the power users, right? Like myself, people who've been familiar with it for a while. So, yeah, that's what the comic is. Again, it's totally fine. I think Declan Shalvey has done a lot better work. Part of that might just be vertical scrolling is kind of it's probably more of an experiment for these creators than it is necessarily an opportunity to really show what they got, because again, like it's a very different thing. Like panels are very different. The issue opens with the peak, with the sword station, which we know is this very long, kind of like Washington Monument-esque thing in space, and you just scroll for like a minute, it feels like, trying to get from the top to the bottom of it. And it's kind of a cool use of that effect. I really don't think there's anything in this comic or in these comics aside from Hickman's affinity for AIM, which seems to be an organization he just kind of digs, that there's like very little about it that tells you it's a Hickman comic. Like truly, like this could have, I think if I not known this was going to be a Hickman vehicle and I'd gotten to the end of it and it said written by Jonathan Hickman, I would have been like, what? Since when? Like there's no data pages, there's no charts, there's no advanced ideas. There are advanced idea mechanics, but there are no advanced ideas in this comic. It is so simple. It is the simplest Wolverine versus AIM kind of story. And again, like it's fine. It's fine. It's just not exciting. It's not what I hoped it would be. It's not super additive. And there was this moment this week when Marvel announced, hey, coming 9/9, Hickman, Shalvey, X-Men comic, when I was just like giggling with glee because every interview that Hickman had done had basically been him saying like, Inferno's my last X-Men thing, and then I'm going to do something totally different, right? And everybody was like, okay, Inferno's the last thing, great. I hope that's good. And obviously there's been a whole conversation and obviously my own obsession about it here in terms of like, okay, what should our investment in X-Men comics be past that point? But what nobody did is nobody suggested, oh, I bet he'll drop a series before Inferno. It's hilarious. It's very clever. It's very smart. It's like a half-truth, right? He just didn't announce it, but it technically totally works. But then the series itself it's not actually an exciting stealth drop. It's just a little Wolverine thing, and it's fine. Again, I think the actual best Infinity comics out today, I thought the Captain America stuff written by Jay Edidin was probably the best book that I read. I liked Mark Russell's basically one-shot with Black Widow and Hawkeye. But they're all like reasonably solid, and again, like if you're already subscribed to Marvel Unlimited, it's a really nice bonus. It's a really nice bonus to get new, actually fresh digital comics in here that are built for the platform, that are built for digital, and that use sort of that WebToon vertical scroller effect, and to kind of see these creators figure out how to do that. There's like zero downside to having these brought into Marvel Unlimited. I like that. I think it's a good thing, hopefully for getting people to subscribe to Marvel Unlimited long term, which is obviously something I've been doing the Lord's work to recommend, probably more than anyone, honestly. Like if you've ever Googled or have thought to Google, is Marvel Unlimited worth it? You have probably found my review on comicbookherald.com. I would guess that I have converted more Marvel Unlimited sales than anyone this side of like Marvel's marketing department. And frankly, maybe more. I haven't made a cent off it. There's no affiliate commission. I just really like the service, and I write honestly about things that I like, comics related on Comic Book Herald. But like, I've converted some sales for Marvel Unlimited. Nonetheless, the big update today is something I want to get into because it's got some good and it's got some bad, and definitely the bad stands out when we're talking about a redesign of something you've used a lot, right? As all of us know from using Facebook or any social media or literally any service, it is a very difficult, nigh impossible challenge to redesign a thing that people are already using in bulk, change the game, change the system, and have that be received positively. Because at a minimum, you're going to be forcing people to change how they engage with the content. But we'll talk about that. But yeah, I mean, as far as this Wolverine comic goes, do not, if you're a big X-Men reader, and obviously if you're listening to Casual Krakoa and you listen to the Kraken Krakoas here on the channel, you probably are. Do not think you need to subscribe to Marvel Unlimited exclusively to read this X-Men Unlimited comic. It is not that good, and it is not that essential. It's fine, okay? I would, if you are curious and you have to check it out, but you otherwise would not have Marvel Unlimited, I would recommend you wait until it's done, whatever the Hickman and Shalvey thing is however long it's gonna last, and then do the 7-day free trial. Marvel's always giving up 7-day free trials on Unlimited. That would be the way to explore it, I think. Again, otherwise it's like $10 for a month or the $69 a year. Annual is definitely the best deal if you're in for the long haul. And again, like if you like reading a lot of Marvel comics, it is the best way to do that. Warts and all. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about how the redesign app update is, I think, as we go. I do want to talk a little bit. I think, and I kind of said this initially, in terms of like the Marvel versus DC of this week, I do think DC won in terms of content. I think the Wayne family content comics are really going to fit in the WebToon platform, and in terms of just getting eyeballs on these characters and getting new fans potentially, I think the DC stuff is going to blow the Marvel Infinity stuff out of the water. But again, like you have to caveat that with the fact that WebToon is free, and these Batman comics are free, and there's a growing, hundreds of thousands of subscribers to this book that are going to be tuned into Batman comics every week. And that's a calculated investment that DC is making for payoff in the long term. Whereas Marvel's approach is saying, come subscribe and pay now, and you'll get these things. I don't necessarily know. Again, like aside from curiosity, aside from the X-obsessive fans who are like, I have to see whatever this Hickman and Shalvey X-Men thing is, I don't know if these Infinity comics are really going to be a reason somebody would subscribe to Marvel Unlimited and pay for it. I personally don't think they would be. I mean, again, the greatest weapon, the greatest strength that Marvel Unlimited has right now is the 30,000 Marvel comics in the catalog. It's the catalog. It's the bulk of the content. You just can't get it anywhere else like that and that easily and that quickly. The Infinity comics are just a nice bonus on top of that, okay? So I would say that, like, it's a good place to be for DC, but also you do have to think, okay, but how are they gonna get paid off these Batman comics eventually, right? And I don't generally care about the business side of things for DC and Marvel. I'm more focused on the content and the quality, frankly. But I am interested in how these companies convert new fans, and I think what DC is doing is saying, forget the short-term profit for a second. Look at all these eyes. Look at all these comics readers who are obsessed with comics on WebToon. How do we get them invested in our characters? And I think throwing those Wayne family things on WebToon was the smartest play they could have made. I mean, and again, that's the thing too, is like they could turn around and make a hardcover of these when they're done, sell it in print, make some money on the back end that way. It's not impossible. It's not impossible. So ultimately, I kind of like DC's approach here a little bit more. I think they're probably winning the week on that front because there's no real standout knockout Infinity comic where all of a sudden it's like, oh, you have to subscribe to Marvel Unlimited to get the good stuff. The other big app updates that Marvel Unlimited made this week is one thing that people have been asking about forever, including myself, which is unlimited downloads. For Marvel Unlimited's entire history, initially you could only download 6 comics at a time. Within the last few years, since DC Universe Unlimited or Infinite or whatever they call it was launched, you could do 12. But you can only download 12 comics at a time. It's really insufficient if you read a boatload of comics like myself. Now you can do unlimited. That's amazing. That's great. That's a huge addition. That's a huge upgrade to this service, and I love that. So the two best things that happened for Marvel Unlimited today is with this redesign is, again, new, fresh comics from star creators, just a nice, fun, positive, net positive, thing to have. And then unlimited downloads is huge. Unlimited downloads makes this a ton more usable. Again, it's like that thing where, like, when I'm home all the time, who cares? And I'm home all the time now, pretty much. But when you're traveling, it makes a big deal. And it's nice, especially if you're on a plane or whatever. So, all right. Let's answer some questions, and then I want to talk a little bit more about Marvel Unlimited, but first probably want to talk a bit about the video game news that I just happened to catch via this PlayStation Insomniac launch thing. They got Insomniac Games. Insomniac's the developer, the video game developer, who produced the PS4 Spider-Man game, which was obviously maybe not obviously, but for me was the best Marvel game that's come out in probably since Ultimate Alliance, which is a game I love, which was 2007-ish maybe. Has there been anything in Marvel better than that? Let me know in the comments if you think so, but I don't think there has been. But they are going to be developing not only Spider-Man 2, which is going to come in time here with Kraven, Kraven as the villain. Also, Venom's going to be in the game. Super exciting. But they're also developing a Wolverine game. The Insomniac's developing a Wolverine game. We have not had a good X-Men video game since Deadpool 2013 on Xbox 360. Which you could argue Deadpool's not an X-Men character, which, all right, fair, maybe. But that game heavily involves Cable, Mr. Sinister, basically does like a light mutant massacre of sorts. That game is really fun. I enjoyed the heck out of that game. But that's not the point. The point is we haven't had a good X-Men game in a bazillion years. Wolverine, developed by this Insomniac team. I could not be more excited. I mean, truly, could not be more excited for this Wolverine game. I have to say, too, and I tweeted this out, shortly after the news broke, definitely think we're going to get Laura Kinney in this game. The shots, the images that we've seen of the video game so far, which are very sparse, we've seen Logan. Okay, we see him sitting in the Princess Bar, if you really strain your eyes to see the text on the light image today. But I bet we're going to get Laura Kinney, too. I bet we're going to, because that's in the Insomniac Spider-Man PS4, you get Miles Morales very quickly. They integrate Miles fast, then Miles got that solo offshoot, which is actually quite enjoyable as well. I bet we're going to get Laura. Are we going to get more of the Wolverine family? I hope so. Could we get Gabby? Could we get Declan? Could we get that whole thing going? Like that's something that has definitely not been explored in video games, because a lot of those characters barely existed or didn't exist. The last time we would have had like legitimate X-Men content circle, like, again, like Wolverine Origins tie-in video game or something like that. So I am so excited, I have to say, about this Wolverine video game. I think it's going to be absolutely incredible. Even if it's not, just the opportunity to see, like, all right, are we going to get, Big Daddy Professor Xavier, tying in? Are we going to see Jean Grey? Are we going to see Cyclops? Like what mutants are going to pop in this? That are, it's a Wolverine game, yes, but like what of the X-Men universe are we going to see? And then could a Wolverine game set the stage for a proper Insomniac X-Men game as the follow-up, right? Is Wolverine 2 like a big proper X-Men game? It doesn't even need to be, but just that potential is very, very exciting, I think. So I see a comment popping in right now, time to go PS5 hunting. That is my exact reaction. I have not once thought I need to go find a PS5. I got to say, like, I'm very content as a person to sit on the old system for too long. Okay, I'm very intent to sit on the old system for way too long. I don't know. I often don't need to get the new one. Clearly, with the PS5, that hasn't mattered because they're sold out everywhere. As I learned today, after all this news, we're going to get Wolverine. We're going to get Spider-Man 2. There's God of War sequel, Ragnarok, which I'm a huge God of War fan. I just finished that recently as well. And I was hunting. I was hunting for PS5s, and apparently they're out of stock everywhere. So I'm gonna be doing whatever I can to track down a PS5 before all these games come out, because it's looking good if you're a Marvel fan. Not to mention, there's the Guardians of the Galaxy game that's coming, which I'm on the fence about, but potentially that could be interesting as well. But yeah, things are looking good. Things are looking good if you're a Wolverine fan, if you're an X-Men fan, and I want to see what they're going to do with it. I'm definitely excited about it. So, all right, let's answer some questions. Get in your questions if you got any about what's going on with these video games, what's going on with these Marvel Unlimited comics, or just Marvel Unlimited questions in general. Again, like, my rec right now would be, if you have Marvel Unlimited questions, like, first off, I recommend it. That's just the baseline. But second off, I do have a great article on comicbookherald.com. If I say so myself, just Google "Is Marvel Unlimited Worth It?" You will find that article. You can read the details there. That was written before the update today, I think, which is important. But my standing rec, again, having one day with it right now is like, I still recommend it. Okay, so all right, let's see, what questions do we have in here today? Dave, what are your comic reading habits? Unlimited, trades, floppies, how many a week per month? New comics versus old, DC versus Marvel? Well, my comic reading habits, I use Marvel Unlimited for basically everything Marvel that's not new, right? I use it all the time. I do the My Marvelous Year podcast where we go through the history of Marvel Comics from its origins to today, and I use Marvel Unlimited exclusively for that. That is the expectation that we have, that if you're going to join us on that reading club journey, where again we're reading the 10 essential stories from every year of Marvel Comics from 1961 through present day. If you're joining us for that, the expectation, the assumption is that you're able to get yourself Marvel Unlimited access, because that's the way to do it. That's the way to get those comics. So yeah, I read primarily digitally on Marvel Unlimited. I think if it's something that I'm excited about on the indie scene, I'll buy the floppies, I'll buy the trade. I've been cutting back in the floppy department, primarily because it's just, the storage is just a huge pain. That's the same reason that a lot of people do, is too much by way of collection means too many long boxes, and that can become a little tedious. So I primarily collect only the things that I know I'm absolutely gonna want to have down the line. I'll collect like Decorum by Hickman, right? If it's a creator that I absolutely love, I'm going to get that in the floppies. I'm going to make sure I want to sit on those. There's not a lot that I read exclusively in floppy right now, honestly, because the other thing too, one of the nice things about having Comic Book Herald and getting to the point where I have some credibility is I get review copies from the major publishers, essentially, aside from DC and the big two, and so I get my image stuff digitally via review copies, so I don't need to collect as much of that as I otherwise would. So I don't actually get, and the other thing too is I have 3 little kids. It doesn't lead to a lot of time to sit down and chill with the floppy. I gotta say, it's definitely not the most convenient or non-rippable way to read material. So, I read Decorum in floppies not too long ago. Every now and again, when I get a window, I'll sit down and pull something out of the long box, but definitely not nearly as much as I used to. With trades, kind of the same deal. I actually keep myself on a weirdly strict, if it can't fit on the bookshelf that I got over here, I just donate it to the library. So all the trades that I get via review copies, anything I buy myself, if I don't love it and I don't have room on the shelf, I just donate everything to the library. So how many comics do I read a week, a month? Oh, I don't know. That varies drastically. Obviously I keep up with all the X-Men stuff weekly. So that's, between 2 and 4 a week. Often, if there's an event that I'm interested in, like Last Annihilation right now, I'll read that as well. If there's a reading order that I'm updating on Comic Book Herald, for an event that's going on currently, I'll try to read everything in that. Otherwise I'll just save the rest to sort of binge and catch up over time. New comics versus old, yeah, same balance. I'm most interested in reading the new stuff and keeping up with what's going on in the current scene. Old stuff I'll read if we're talking about it for My Marvelous Year podcast, essentially. And then as far as DC versus Marvel, I'm definitely more of a Marvel person. I'm definitely way more of a Marvel fan. I think just kind of have been. But I like DC Comics plenty. I've never liked one over the other in any sort of competitive sense. But I do not keep up with DC nearly as much, just because of time restraints and all that. So those are the general comics reading habits. But I don't know. I've kind of always got some comic I'm checking out or something on the tablet that I want to try to get to in a day. I just caught up on Ice Cream Man and Haha because I love W. Maxwell Prince's writing. Let's see, I read a George Orwell biography recently that I got sent, which was kind of a letdown. Maybe just want to read George Orwell stuff. Speaking of little stream of consciousness, Aldous Huxley's Brave New World and The Island, heavily related to the Krakoa era. I did not realize this until recently, but I was doing the Hickman X-Men reread, which I'll have a video on soon. And the first issue, X-Men #1, the name of it is A Brave New World, which is the Aldous Huxley dystopian novel from the 1920s. And then in X-Men #4, Magneto actually quotes from Aldous Huxley's last novel, The Island. So if you are curious in exploring some literary themes and connections in this Hickman era of X-Men, a reread of Brave New World and a reread of The Island, or maybe a read, because that one is definitely less known, could well be in the cards. And I gotta say, even just the first 2 chapters of Brave New World, there's a lot of stuff where I was like, oh wow, this is like really on the nose. Like it's been a while since I've read it. But just, like, how about this? Like, just the people are, born, they are produced, manufactured essentially out of eggs. It's very Krakoan resurrection in terms of style and all that. So I think, like, if you are someone who is more interested in the literary themes and aspects and sort of the inspirations for this work, Aldous Huxley's work is definitely a clear connective tissue. And the interesting thing about the island, which obviously you can tell from the title, is much like the island of Krakoa, and it is because the island's all about like a utopian paradise, right? Whereas Brave New World was kind of the dystopia, and this is super reductive, but that's broad themes. The dystopia is Brave New World. The utopia that Huxley's writing about is the island, or sort of what that could be like. That's what the Krakoa era is, right? It's like, okay, what is mutant paradise? What would that look like? What would we need? I think, intriguingly, like, one of the core themes is just like really open relationships, just like a lot of sex with a lot of people, like clearly a utopia. Which, sure, yeah, maybe so, maybe we all just need more doors on all of our rooms, right? Easier access, that could be the trick. But yeah, definitely read more of Huxley's work if you're interested in some of that stuff. That has been fun. Speaking of literary connections, I got a couple questions about Dune, so I want to check that out. 1 second. All right. Got a question here in the chat, and those of you who are getting in questions, thanks so much. Again, I didn't say it earlier, but just be polite and respectful to each other. That's all I ask. But otherwise, get as many questions as you can. The super chat is available if you want to get in super chat and whatnot, and I will prioritize those. But the question I got is: a few Casual Krakoas ago, you told us you were reading Dune. What did you think? And then I saw another question that was basically like, did Hickman steal all his ideas from Dune? I'm paraphrasing because I kind of missed it, and now I definitely won't be able to find it. But so I did finally read Dune for the first time, and by read I mean listen to on audiobook. I want to be very clear. I don't know what the proper semantics are when one has truly switched to the audiobook lifestyle, as I have. But I definitely listened to Dune. I enjoyed it a lot. It's obviously great science fiction. There's clearly a reason it is so vastly popular and well known. Things I didn't know. I didn't know Dune was written in the 1960s. I assumed it was more modern than that. So that was cool to see that, clearly this has had a legacy and an influence as opposed to the other way around, although I'm sure it has its own inspirations and on and on and on. I didn't realize how indebted Hickman was to Dune. I did not realize as an author, like, how clearly in love he is with that world and with that franchise. Again, I talked about this, but like, obviously, Araco and the mutants of Araco, that is straight up the name of the Dune planet. Like, that is not a reference. That is literally the name that is used in Dune. Even stuff like all the quotes, the epigraphs, right, of individuals with quotes leading into the comic, that's very Dune-esque. That begins with quotes from the Princess Erelon. And I have no idea, like, if I try to spell anything in Dune, I would look like an absolute lunatic because it's all just heard. I've heard it, I can maybe repeat it and pronounce it approximation, but if I tried to write it, it would look just completely insane. But yeah, like, clearly there are stylistic tics. There's a lot of just the ways I think Hickman writes political, machinations and individuals, scheming for power is clearly referential to the novel. And I'm gonna read the rest of it. I'm gonna read the rest of the series, at least the first 3. It seems like are absolutely necessary to dig into. I'll probably try to do that before the movie, but like I said, I've been going back to some of the Huxley, which has been really enjoyable. And then I've been listening to Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson, which actually John Galati, writer supreme on Comic Book Herald, recommended I read in relation to Decorum by Hickman and Huddleston. So I've been doing that one as well. And I got to tell you, Neil Stephenson book takes a minute. To get all the way through that. But yeah, if you haven't read Dune before, check it out. I can't imagine it won't be better than the movie. I have to suspect the book will remain better than the movie, but in the meantime, that's the rec for the week. All right, what other questions we got? Just got a super chat in from Koji. Thanks so much for the question here. Is X-Force number 23 on the table for discussion? If so, what are your thoughts on what Mikhail's motivations and plans are? Yeah, so we got We got 2 new comics this week that I did not do videos on. We had Excalibur number 23 came out yesterday, as well as X-Force number 23. I did extremely short reviews of them in the announcement that Casual Krakoa would be today. So, yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about them. X-Force number 23. So first off, both were fairly enjoyable. Fairly enjoyable. Again, I've been saying for a while now that I think both of these series, and I think the Dawn of X as a whole, is in a too comfortable position. They are all sort of spinning their wheels. They've been playing a long game that I don't think they've really earned necessarily the patience for. And Excalibur and X-Force number 23, they continue to do that in some ways, but they also move the needle in ways that I found very enjoyable. X-Force number 23 leaned into the fact that Beast has been the worst for this entire era, and then some, right? He's been the worst for decades now. A decade, maybe. I don't know that I take it too much further than that. But yeah, so it leaned into like, why is he so awful? Him knowing he's awful, him saying like, I'll be the bastard and just owning that. The fact that he has self-awareness around what he is doing is appreciated and enjoyable. It felt probably like Percy's most meta commentary, you know, in terms of fan reaction to what he's doing with Beast, and sort of Percy sounded like, you know, speaking through Beast to direct us as readers directly. I did think, so in this issue, Beast is experimenting. You remember when the tiny guys, who have even tinier guys inside them, the nesting doll assassins, infiltrated Krakoa? Everybody said, get rid of those, kill them all, get rid of them, exterminate them. Beast kept one for experiment. Classic Beast, classic hubris. And in keeping that, he was like, "Oh, I need to experiment on it. I'm great." But then he kills one of the tiny guys, or he thinks he did, and then an even tinier guy sneaks into his ear. A lot of tiny guys in this comic, which is pretty fun. I gotta say, like, that's pretty enjoyable. Beast hubris. The problem I have with that is not the hubris, not the fact that he would do that. It's the fact that Beast is still very smart. Beast is a genius. And he's messing up in ways that are, like, dumb. Like, you have a tiny assassin that you know nests tinier assassins. Surely, Beast, with all his genius and technical prowess, could have invented something or set up a system where he could track what's going on with the tiny guys so that one wouldn't just sneak into his ear and infect him. I don't know. It felt too easy in some ways, too easy to set the stage for Black Tom and Wee Tom, which is, again, another tiny guy, the Wee Tom, to go inside Beast and now have a tiny guy battle, which, again, great comic book premise. I'm here for it. But yeah, I mean, it's an enjoyable issue. I think the bigger stuff that happened is definitely Mikhail Rasputin is maybe more in charge, maybe more pulling the strings than we ever realized. The man with the peacock tattoo, who's been teased in X-Force as this great threat with Xeno since like issue number 1, this great threat to mutant kind. He hasn't done anything really, like he's increasingly less and less interesting. So I don't know if it'll stay this way, but I'm actually here for the turn potentially that Mikhail's just like, you're actually working for me now. Like, I'm actually into that because Mikhail Rasputin is the brother of Colossus, the brother of Ileana, has Marvel and a mutant, obviously, with like these kind of like, nebulous reality warping power, not reality warping, but these warping type abilities. And I dig making Mikhail more of a focus. Somebody tell me if I'm saying that weird. I don't know. Mikkel is how they say a name in Dark. Michael's how we would say it here in the States. In Russia, how would you pronounce Mikhail? Is it Mikhail or is that weird? I don't know. But I do like him being more of a focus and clearly putting sort of the national politics at more of a forefront, of Russia as an antagonist of Krakoa. I do question and wonder whether Percy's Russia is like a wild stereotype. Like, I don't know. There was a lot of, in this issue, just like naming Russian authors to be like, oh yeah, Russia, Nabokov, right? Like Tolstoy, yeah, I know Russia. And I was kind of like, I don't know if that's really getting to the core of it. But I like that twist. And then the big reveal we got was Mikhail has the Chronicler. So throughout X-Force, we've had all these stories going on with someone documenting what's going on in the Krakoa era. I had assumed, or maybe theorized, that it was like Colossus's girlfriend, who we don't really know anything about. But it turns out it is this individual that Mikhail is keeping in one of his little pocket dimensions. My initial read on it was like, is that Dr. Faustus from like Captain America comics? But no, I don't think so. It looked like somebody who's probably an alcoholic. Maybe that's a reference to a Russian writer. I gotta say, I didn't put too much time into researching and theorizing who it could be. There was an implication potentially with the Chronicler here that like what the Chronicler is writing, maybe it's a mutant, and like what they're writing is causing it to actually occur. Like that would be cool, right? That's kind of a mind management, if you read that Matt Kinn series, kind of idea, right? Like this person with the power and the ability to write something and then have that actually happen. You know, it's interesting. It's an interesting idea. Mikhail's clearly, you know, weaponizing the Chronicler. There was also a tease during that sequence of showing us this character of a quick cut to like Colossus painting, and it wasn't outright stated that like, oh yeah, he's a mole, or like, oh yeah, he's under Mikhail and the Chronicler's control. But the fact that they cut the panels to show Colossus definitely gave that inference, because otherwise why do you do that? Like he's not really involved in this issue very heavily. So I'm still definitely of the theory that Colossus is in fact our Krakoan mole for Zeno, that he's the one who suffocated the assassin way back in like X-Force number 3, you know, when they wanted to interrogate that character. I have to think that that is where this story is going. I think possibly with the Chronicler, you could twist their powers into a position where it's like Colossus knows not what he does. You know, it could be kind of a thing where you save the character by making them a mole, but making them essentially under the possession or under the control of these Russian operatives. I think that would probably be the best way to do it. I think if you actually have Piotr doing it of his own volition, actually knowing full well that he's like, no, I stand with Mother Russia, not mutant kind, that would really, really hardcore work against, I think, a lot of years of X-Men comics, frankly. And I'm not so sure that that would work super well. So, but you know, we'll see how Percy X plays out. I just think that would need a lot more support and help, frankly, in the story. Like I just think like Percy and Cassara and whoever else is involved, they would have to put a lot more time into Colossus's character to make that turn effective, and that has not been the story thus far. Like if it's just a turn where it's like, oh, it was Colossus and he's actually really into Russia now at the expense of mutant kind, like the work has not been done to get us to that point to believe that. So that would be disappointing. But I think if you do it with the Chronicler, that would be very effective. You know, I think that'd be very effective. Otherwise, we need a lot more Chronicler. I think we need a lot more Chronicler and we need a lot more Colossus to get this book, you know, to add up. But yeah, I mean, again, it was a solid issue. It's if you've enjoyed X-Force, you're going to have like, you know, you will have liked this issue. If you've been out on it and you're like, this thing's not going anywhere, it's not moving its wheels, hold fast, because the same problem still exists. Speaking of the same problem still exists, you know, Excalibur number 23 is the other book that came out this week. Dr. Doom's in it, so it's better. Dr. Doom's in it, so it is pretty good. It is hard to have a comic with Dr. Doom that is not a pretty good comic. That's a hard thing to do. It's a challenge. Tina Howard doesn't pull it off. She does not make the comic bad with Dr. Doom in it. It's enjoyable Dr. Doom. He has good quotes, good lines. I quite like a couple things here in Excalibur. One, I've been saying for a long time, definitely since Ten of Swords, that I would love Excalibur to be a book that really explores Otherworld and this totally new landscape that has been set up, as well as the fact that Betsy Braddock is Captain Britain. That, to me, is the territory that I want Excalibur to be leaning into. This book does that. I also really like that Dr. Doom has a relationship with Morgan Le Fay. He knows about Arthurian legend. He's gone back to King Arthur's times. He has met King Arthur with Iron Man in the classic Doom quest in Iron Man issues 149, 150, I think it is. Dr. Doom knows these people. He knows this land, or he knew Otherworld. That's cool. I like those connections. I like that there are Marvel characters outside of Excalibur who know that. I like, too, that Dr. Doom would show up with a mutant baby in his arms. Like, that's like it's a key. Like, it's a house key. You know, so it's just, like, perfectly Doom and perfectly wild and crazy. But then also that Excalibur would be like, yeah, you knew Otherworld, but you don't know it now. That's cool. That's interesting, right? It has changed tremendously post Ten of Swords, Excalibur's kind of the only unit that really understands that, at least Earth-based. So that's pretty cool. But Doctor Doom is going to Otherworld, dealing with Mad Jim Jaspers. All of these things are things that I like. The Fury showing up at the end of this issue. This is tapping into the Alan Moore and Alan Davis Captain Britain stuff of the 80s that is so good and so interesting and makes this whole Otherworld a very interesting space. Will Excalibur continue to lean into that, into what makes it good? I have no confidence. It's been badly inconsistent. I think probably at the end of the day, one of the greatest challenges this book has is it so badly just wants to be a Betsy Braddock solo series, maybe even a title, a Captain Britain title. But it does that at the expense of what I think actually makes Excalibur cool, which is all of the magic of Otherworld, which is all of the magic that Ten of Swords created, and also like the fact that we have a Captain Britain core that are all Betsy Braddocks, which we do not spend enough time with, and we do not spend enough time with that concept. But nonetheless, I liked this specific issue. I like anytime Doctor Doom, Mad Jim Jaspers, and the Fury are involved, that's probably going to be at a minimum an interesting comic. So. I think Excalibur, it gets a bad rap, because it's the Dawn of X book that has been going the longest, that I have been the hardest on, certainly, I think, in Crack and Krakoa reviews. But, I think it's important to remember that, every other issue or every, 1 in 3 issues, I'm like, yeah, that was cool. That was good. It pulls it out every so often. That's the thing is, even being down on Excalibur, I don't think Excalibur is a bad series. First off, people love it. It's a Twitter fave, right? Like Excalibur's built for Twitter. Which is an audience, but it's also it's has its moments. It has good moments. It's just not nearly as consistent as the good stuff in the line. But if somebody was like, "Yeah, I like Excalibur a lot more than X-Force," I'm not surprised by that. I'm not baffled by that. If somebody's like, "I like X-Corp a lot more than X-Force," I'm real confused. I can't stomach that. X-Corp's a disaster for me. But Excalibur is not that. I want to be very clear. Excalibur is not that. I was very offended today when I was exploring Marvel Unlimited, this app update, and I went to do a search for. I was actually going to look for the Executioner song because I was playing around with the event, and X-Corp came up first when I did X dash as a search. And how dare X-Corp? How dare it show up first for X dash? That is offensive. Marvel Unlimited, you need to fix that search listing. Stat unacceptable. Unacceptable. But yeah, otherwise, 2 solid comics. Solid isn't going to convince me the Krakoa era is in an amazing place. So again, I want these creators to show us how they can step up their game, I think, as we make it into Inferno. We're in a really interesting place for the X-Men comics right now, we're in a really interesting place. We're approaching a Trial Magneto issue next week. Once the end of September hits, we're going to be in the middle of Trial Magneto, we're going to be Inferno in full swing, and we're going to be post-Onslaught Revelation. And it's gonna be there's so much big stuff happening. Books, what are books doing? How are they meeting? How are they rising to that occasion? That's the challenge. Are they just gonna sit there and be hey, we're having a tiny guy battle, which can be fun, but it's also okay, is that rising to the occasion? We got a question here. Does Red Root get freed? No, Red Root did not get freed. Red Root did not appear, to my knowledge. If somebody saw Red Root appear, let me know, but I did not see Red Root appear. We also got a question here in the chat. Dave, is X-Corp worse than Fallen Angels? I'm getting close to declaring it. I'm close. We got 1 issue left. I'm close to declaring it, honestly. Here's the thing. Fallen Angels, for disliking it as much as I did, and it is visually the worst comic in the line. The narrative is kind of interesting, just on its own merits. It's also gone on to have a legacy in Hellions. Fallen Angels has contributed to the Krakoan era, to the best book in the line. So, does it get credit for that? In some ways, yes. In some ways, I think it does. I don't think I'm not secretly now actually Fallen Angels is underrated. But again, I said this last time. I said this last Casual Krakoa. I think Brian Edward Hill got a raw deal. I think Brian Edward Hill did not get supported enough via editorial and via the X Office community, this amazing community that loves talking on Slack all the time, where were they to tell Hill, like, hey, you're writing Laura and Cable as two characters who do not exist. These are not the same characters as they are in other books. Like, that communication was not there for that creator. And I think when everything else is so synchronized and so understood and set up, again, like, and I don't know how much blame Hickman gets for this. He certainly got credit at the time, but it's like after a few issues of Fallen Angels had come out, and Laura Kinney was written awfully, atrociously. Like Hill did a very bad job on that, like just on his own merits. Like he wrote a very bad Laura. Hickman stepped in X-Men #5 and had that exchange where he said, "I'm Wolverine," and and the Logan Wolverine backing her up. And that meeting fan sentiment, that meeting what fans expected of that character at that moment, somebody could have told Hill that before issues were published, not cognizant of that fact, rather than having Hickman do it as like meta commentary in the X-Men series. You know, like Hill was set up to fail or didn't listen to advice and plowed ahead and failed as on his own. I don't know the inside track here, but I think Fallen Angels got a raw deal in that regard. But no, it's very, very bad. But I do think X Corp is like, will X Corp do anything? Will it have any legacy? Will it have any influence, or will it be this thing that we're all just going to be like, hey, remember when we were like, I wonder what it'd be like for mutants to go to work? Like, why did we ever think about that? And then we never talk about it otherwise, you know? Because it's like, here's the thing: is like the comic book equivalent of going to work is not a good idea. It's not a fun thing. But yeah, I think X-Corp is visually not as like repulsive as Fallen Angels, but it is definitely it's just incredibly flat. Again, the best thing about the series continues to be the David Aja covers, which is, without those it would have almost no pages that you needed to look at. So all right, let's keep it moving. Got any other good questions here? Nothing obvious. All right, cool. Bucks or Cowboys tonight? I gotta say, not a Tampa Bay fan, not a Dallas fan, but you gotta go with the champs. Gotta go with the champs. Gotta go with the Bucks. I hope we do not see the Bucks succeed again. But here's the thing: is like, I don't want Brady to win again. I'm not here for that. But I want to see them around. I want to see them lose in spectacular fashion later in the playoffs. It's not like I don't want them to make the playoffs. You know, that's less drama. You want the villain there at least at the end of the story. I got nothing for the Cowboys. I guess technically I have family in Dallas, Cowboys fans, but I mean, come on, they're nothing. They're not a threat. Big year for the Bears? No, it's not going to be. It's definitely not going to be a big year for the Bears, but it is going to be a big year for Justin Fields. I am excited about the Justin Fields experience. This isn't the year where it's actually going to matter and we're actually going to be good, but I do think he will be an incredible quarterback, and we will see that this year as well. Thanks, everybody, for popping in the questions here. I'm grabbing as many as I can, and we'll try to tackle them. Let's see if I had any additional notes before we get to it. Before anyone asks, I have not seen Shang-Chi yet. I don't know when I will. It is not on Marvel Disney Plus, and I am bummed. I'm bummed about that fact. I do not want to or possibly have time to go sit in a theater with 3 little kiddos, but I want to see it sometime. It sounds. I bet I'll like it. But I got to tell you, I have no idea what's going to happen. I have no idea what has happened, so I'm spoiler free on that book. Good question here. What are your top 5 Hickman era X books, and why? Oh, I read that differently when I saw it initially. I thought you were just asking what my favorite Hickman comics are, which is a different answer. What are your top 5 Hickman era X books? All right, let's see. Hellions, Sword. Hellions, Sword, Hickman's X-Men. Ayala and Reese, New Mutants. And I'm forgetting something. What is it? I like Way of X already. I don't know that it's a top 5 or what am I blanking on? It's none of the Dawn of X stuff. Marauders was in the conversation for a while. It's not anymore. What are the other new ones? I guess it's Way of X. I guess. What am I missing? I feel like I maybe missed something. Let me know here in the comments. There could be something else. All right, all right, all right. Yeah, cool question. Cool questions. Okay, have I been reading Defenders? No, I'm behind on Defenders. I need to check that out. Love Al Ewing stuff. Have you been reading The Nice House on the Lake? Yes, it rules. James Tynion is on a tear, on a remarkable tear. I saw it today, and I forget where the story was, but I saw that his Substack deal was $500,000. I guess they paid him like somebody at Substack has also been reading The Nice House on the Lake because they are all in on Tynion. I was surprised by that number in the sense that like if you know comics right now, like James Tynion is writing just an incredible breadth of amazing comic books, including Batman, of all things. But like he's only been doing it for at this level for what, like a year and a half, maybe two or something. It's not like they're catching Tynion early on the curve, which is smart. But usually how these things go is like the big free agent signing, if we're going to use the sports analogy, would come after they've had like massive success. Like a Hickman would get that kind of money because they've been doing it for a minute. But it seems like they're catching Tynion on the upswing, which honestly for Substack seems really, really smart. I did not talk about New Mutants last week. I didn't talk in any detail about what happened with Brew and the Brood. I don't think I'm seeing a question here. That was pretty cool. I really dug that issue. I think Ayala and was Reese on that issue. I think too. Yeah. It was a great run or great issue. Really moved things along in a way that I thought was very positive and beneficial. The Brew situation is really cool. Here's the thing. Like Ayala's doing such a good job in that book in New Mutants of pulling and grabbing X-Men continuity, X-Men community stuff and pulling it into her own book or into their own book and making it New Mutants related. Like the fact that the Brood are there on the moon and they're attacking Warpath and the kids and they're out of control. And then Brew shows up and he's kind of like, pulling at his collar like, yeah, we had a rebellion. It's fine now. That's a really interesting detail. We haven't seen Brew and the Brood since X-Men, what was it, issues 8 and 9 by Hickman and Lionel Francis Hugh. And now all of a sudden there's Ayala pulling him back into the story to let us know that like, yeah, not all's amazing in Brood world. Brew is losing control of some of these Brew creatures. Like yet another thing is potentially falling apart. I loved that detail. I loved the fact that it was even there. I'm very interested to see if the Brood will play a role in Inferno. Will that seed get pulled on to have like the giant Brood army? You know what? I actually think the most interesting question right now for Inferno for me is, will the Phalanx stuff actually rear its head? Will we actually touch on that in any significant way, even to the point of like, will the Phalanx invade? Because I've been assuming to this point, and theorizing to this point, that we're not there yet, that's endgame stuff, that maybe we'll get the reference to Moira being like, yeah, I want to ascend to Phalanx godhood or whatever it is that she's actually planning, right? But then probably we wouldn't actually see the aliens. But the more I think about it, and the fact that it's the end of the Hickman thing, for now, it's kind of like, well, what if he actually did just do the ending now? What if instead of this theory about like, oh, this is his Act 2 and Act 3, maybe he'll come back for it, maybe he won't. Maybe he just mashes up Act 2 and Act 3 into one thing and just does it all. And then I think we would see the Brood. Then I think we would see all the alien battles and all the alien interactions. I don't know that that's what's going to happen. Obviously, I don't have any inside information there, but I do kind of like the idea that this is like Act 2 and Act 3 into kind of a new thing. And this is just like Hickman just does it all. He just leaves it all out on the table, does the whole thing, does the ending, and then everybody can just be like, oh, well, we can all shut up about is he coming back? Because it'll be like, well, he delivered. He did his ending thing, and now they're going to go do whatever the heck they do on the rest of the X books. I don't have a ton of confidence that's what's going to happen, but I'm curious. I think that's the most interesting question to me for this event. Here's a very specific, interesting question. Will Lord Chantel appear somewhere in Devil's Reign? I mean, Fisk needs some help in transportation. That would be a great use of the return of Lord Chantel, everyone's favorite character from classic X-Men number 8, maybe, who was just, Yeah, we just learned about her resurrection in the pages of Marauders, and the fact that she's working with Wilson Fisk, that'd be awesome. Actually, that'd be a really cool connection to Marauders in the Chip Zdarsky and Marco Cicchetto Devil's Reign, an event I am looking forward to. Honestly, here's the thing: Marvel events get a bad rap, but when the event spirals out of a run that's really good, and it's the same creators doing that event, it tends to, at worst, be solid. Okay, like War of the Realms. At worst, had Russell Dodderman and Matt Matthew Wilson colors and art. Look great, right? Fine enough story. Devil's Reign will probably be good. This Gerald run's been great. I dig it. So I expect Devil's Reign, the event coming in 2022, actually might be cool. All right. Final question I think I got here, unless we get any great ones at the end or any super chats here, let me know. Let's see. What's the question? It is, Dave, so I'm confused. Is there still another mystery X-Men series in 2022? Nothing that has been teased or announced. I don't believe. The Hickman Shalvey thing, that's out on Marvel Unlimited. You could go read it right now with a subscription. It is called X-Men Unlimited, and it is a Wolverine story. There's the X Lives and X Deaths of Wolverine, written by Benjamin Percy. That's going to come out at the start of the year. We know that's going to be like kind of a weekly event thing, which I'm actually getting more and more excited for. I don't want to say I have high hopes, but I think it could be really cool. I think maybe people jump the gun on sort of the, because like an Insomniac Wolverine video game gets announced today, and I'm ecstatic. I'm so excited about that. That's going to be amazing. And I think there's all this like, oh, Wolverine again. Oh, we've seen Wolverine so much. I like Wolverine. I like Wolverine a lot, actually. Like, when good Wolverine stuff is well worth the time and well worth the money. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful about that event. But no, I don't think anything else has been teased or announced for 2022. I mean, here's the thing: is like there will be X-Men series that we don't know about that are mysteries right now in 2022. I mean, for sure, not for sure, but it sure seems like in March of next year, there's probably going to be kind of a relaunch, kind of a or like a series relaunch, kind of some new titles. We still got a Victor Laval written book coming, which again, I'm pegging as Sabretooth and the Exiles, but we'll see. But no, there's nothing on my radar that's actually been announced. So I don't know what you're referencing there, but I don't think there is anything quite like that. Okay, so I think that is going to do it for today. Thanks everybody for joining. Thanks for the questions. I appreciate it. I did say I was going to touch briefly on Marvel Unlimited changes and whatnot. They definitely. So first off, again, to reiterate, if you like Marvel Comics, it's worth the money. At a minimum, try the 7-day trial. See if you like it. They made a lot of updates to the app today in terms of the user interface, where it looks sleeker. It's definitely, I think, going to be better if it's your first time using it to find stuff and to sort of navigate it. I think if you've been using it for a while, and I've been using it for over a decade at this point, the changes today kind of suck. You kind of have to relearn things. Some features definitely got lost. Like, I don't think you can filter by publication date anymore, which sucks for me, especially because I do a podcast where we read stories from particular years. I know people too who really like reading, hey, I want to read all the Marvel comics or the ones that I think are interesting from 2016. And you could just filter by that year and scroll on through and do it really easily. That feature I would love to see come back because that was extremely useful and it seems to be gone now. And that really sucks. That diminishes the value of this service for me. I think some navigation things are just actually got worse and, kind of created some problems in trying to fix things and trying to streamline them. I think, one thing that I think everyone's been asking for, and I asked this week on Twitter, I said, which you can follow me at Comic Book Herald, I would love it if you do, but I asked, what are people's problems with Marvel Unlimited at this point? Because generally, at this point, for the last 2 or 3 years, it works for me. It works, it's fine, I get my comics, I love it. But I got literally hundreds of answers from people saying, oh, this is bad, and this is bad, and a lot of it was buggy stuff, comics take forever to load. Some of that's going to be device specific, some of it not. Some of it's definitely the service. But one thing that came up a gazillion times was people saying, I want to be able to make custom reading playlists. And I would love it if when I'm reading an event that, I read the first issue and then it takes me to the next issue in the event, not the next issue in the series. And they still didn't fix that. And that's what I got up in the image here as I was reading Executioner's Song. And if you read the first issue, which is Uncanny X-Men 294, it does not take you to part 2, which occurs in X Factor. It instead recommends you continue reading Uncanny X-Men. That's a miss. That's a miss. Stuff like that. That would just be a better reading experience. But generally, the answer for all this stuff is just like, just be patient and do an annoying amount of clicking back. Like there are solutions that are more annoying than actual app breaking. You know what I mean? Which like again, because the value of paying $5.95 a month for 30,000 comics is really good for me as someone who reads a gazillion Marvel books. I've been willing, and again, like I've been using this since 2009, 2010. So like when you compare the bugginess that this thing used to have to what it is now, it's like this thing is incredible. It's never been better, but obviously I see that like no, it's not actually a perfect thing. I don't know. It's not a job I envy being a dev on something like this. I think it's be incredibly difficult. It's kind of a thankless task in a lot of ways. But there's definitely some stuff that I'd like to see them break back. Filtering by date, reading playlist, that stuff. The reading playlist one's tricky because it's like, on one hand, it could clearly be better as a feature and as a reading experience. On the other hand, could it mean people use comicbookherald.com less for reading guides? Might not benefit me personally. Therefore, I want you all to suffer and have to come to my site and use those reading orders. But anyway, thanks everybody for listening. I appreciate you all hopping on for the live stream. Marvel Unlimited is worth it. I do recommend it. The Hickman new X-Men series, X-Men Unlimited, is not worth the money just for that. But if you're going to join anyway because you want to read other X-Men comics and other Marvel comics, then yes, of course, check it out. And I'll be reading these Infinity comics. I'll definitely be keeping up with them as they go for a bit here. So long as they can bring in big name creators like this on series, I'm going to want to see what they do with the platform at least. Like it's definitely going to be interesting. So thanks everybody for listening. As always, enjoy the comics, and we'll talk next week. Thank you.